Parts of this computer. There we go. All right. I am going to be, my name is Madeline. I am Oregon Farm Corps' Collaborative Farming Program Manager. And I am going to be giving a very brief spiel about OFC and what we do and why we hold webinars like this before handing it over to our wonderful guest speakers. We have three guest speakers this evening from the Snake River Seed Cooperative. So I'm going to share my screen real fast. And please ignore the egregious amount of slides on or tabs on my screen. Okay, so welcome. I was supposed to have that up while I was talking earlier. Forgot. Welcome to our webinar for the night, utilizing the cooperative model for seed production. Like I said, we are so grateful and lucky to be joined here by three folks from the Snake River Seed Cooperative. Um, Brief little agenda for the night. I'm going to go over OFC and our collaborative farming work, hand it over to our guest speakers, and then we have roughly 20 to 25 minutes left at the end for Q&A. So I hope you all came with your curiosities, and I'm trialing a Zoom poll survey tonight. So at the very end, that will pop up on your screens. And if you are familiar with nonprofit work, you know surveys are so helpful for us. So I appreciate in advance you filling that out. Before I hold any of these webinars, I always like to do a little reminder and just cultural centering of the history of collaboration, specifically cooperatives in farming in the United States, and that so much of the rich history of cooperative farming is rooted in Black farming culture, and so much of the principles of collaboration are not these new fun ideas that are like novel, but really rooted in cultures outside of Western colonial mindsets. And so I always just like to open these sessions with a reminder and a centering and acknowledgement of that. Um, OFC, Oregon Farm Corps, previously known as Rogue Farm Corps. We launched our collaborative farming program 3 years ago now. We have a super robust library of collaborative farming resources on our website. We offer a one-on-one consulting program to farmers interested in pursuing collaborative projects. So if something you hear tonight sparks your interest and you want to talk more about how you could bring a similar project to life, I invite you to reach out to me. And again, a huge part of our program is offering events like these, webinars like these, and in-person networking events. And so tonight's webinar is just one part of a comprehensive program looking to support collaborative and cooperative projects across the state of Oregon. And if you want to know more, because that is about as brief as my spiel can get, you can feel free to send me an email. That is my contact there. Drop any questions you have in the chat. I'll get back to you. But I try to take up as little space as possible during these so that we can utilize the brief amount of time we have with our guest speakers. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Casey. Casey, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you.
Amazing.
I was like trying to use a dual monitor thing so I could look at notes, but don't worry about it. I got it. I can wing it. Sorry about the little, that was a little stressful there for a moment.
Don't
Um,
apologize. I'm glad you're
yeah,
with us.
happy to be with all of you. I see some old and new friends here, so it's really nice to see some of you I haven't seen in several years, and some of you who I've just recently met. So glad to be with all of you. Yeah, as Madeline said, my name is Casey, and I'll go ahead and share my screen too, if that's okay. And I'll show you a few slides here. Let's see here. Make sure y'all can see that okay. Mhm, mhm. Slideshow from beginning, maybe. Oh, there we go. Okay, we're good. Yeah. Thumbs up. All right, sweet. Okay, so I am happy to be joined here with Jessica McAleese with Swift River Farm in Salmon, Idaho, and with Kelly Kingsland in Moscow, Idaho. I'm here in Boise, Idaho. Um, and we all three are co-owners of the Snake River Seed Co-op. And so we're happy to answer questions and all of that, but I'll just do a little overview of the co-op to start. Um, so we are a fully worker and farmer owned cooperative, 100%. This is a super rare model. This is one of the only ones it's definitely the only one in Idaho, and it's one of the only ones in the country where we have these classes of owners where we can have worker owners, employee owners of the co-op, and then grower owners. There are 38 farmers in our co-op who are currently stewarding 402 unique varieties of seeds, which right this moment are adapting to the Intermountain West bioregion. And of those 38, we have 17 co-owners currently. There are 13 owners that are grower owners and then 4 that are worker owners. And we sell our seeds online on our little website and then also in about 75 garden centers in around the Intermountain West. Our mission is to grow a robust regional seed shed for the Intermountain West. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I've been thinking about this in terms of community seed systems lately. So I think what we're trying to do, we always say it's business as unusual, but what we're really trying to do is grow a robust seed system that can support all of us for the long haul. And so there's a real need to have part of that community seed system has to do with grower having a big network of growers who are in multiple parts of our bioregion. So, if one area gets hit with a tornado or a flood or something like that, a big hailstorm and wipes somebody's out. We've got other growers in other places who are doing this work, but we're all within the same bioregion. And so these seeds are getting passed around in our own bioregion and adapting to these rugged conditions in the Intermountain West. And the other big part of this is that, there's many of us sharing responsibility for stewarding these seeds. And so, it's not just on one farmer's shoulder to make sure that these don't die. There's a lot of us working on it. Let's see. So if you are interested in cooperative models or thinking about building a cooperative for yourself, one thing I highly recommend is starting with the grounding in shared values. It's incredibly important. We got a lot of different people with a lot of different ideas and a lot of different ways of doing things. Our core values are really important to us. They're central to everything we do at the co-op, and we run all of our day-to-day decisions through them. I'll just say them out loud because I love saying them. They are sacred relationship with the earth, producer-driven economic models, seed sovereignty, anti-racism, and local economies. And I think just having these makes it really nice when you maybe disagree with someone else about how something should be done. And it's a lot easier to be able to, rather than saying like, I don't like what you're doing, it's nice to be able to say, actually don't think that's in line with our values. And it just helps to keep us all focused on what we want to be focused on. Obviously, the most important part of all of this is the seeds themselves. This is why we're here. So the way we think about this is we exclusively work with open pollinated seeds, meaning seeds that can breed true to type if they are saved by a person. They're not hybrids. They'll come true to type, provided you know how to isolate them properly. And they're also open source, so they're not patented. We don't believe that seeds shouldn't be patented, and we want them to stay in the public commons. I recently read on a seed company's website that one of our former coworkers moved. She just moved to Austria, and she has a seed company near her, and their website says, "Open pollinated seeds are a common good, not a business model." And I love that. It's like, yeah, that's what we're building. So we focus on, we think that there's a real need for Western native seeds. Having native plants is a part of this, right? We're trying to figure out, we humans, how to live here, how to feed ourselves, but also be good neighbors to all of the other ecosystem beings who we share space with. And it's really important to us that we steward some native plants as well as some of the food crops that we grow in the co-op. We also are a place where people who have their regional heirlooms that they love and they don't have anybody to carry them on, we can keep those going for folks in our bioregion. And we can also be supporting the heirlooms of tomorrow, as we call them, like the amateur plant breeders. Um, who are in our area who are stewarding these and making new varieties that'll end up being our heirlooms of the future. A lot of us are market growers as well, and so we do a lot of trialing of how do these certain food crops, how do they stand up to like the kinds of things that market gardeners are expecting from a lot of the hybrids that they grow. So are they reliable producers? Are they uniform? Are they, do they just crank production wise? So we do a lot of that. But then I feel like the magical varieties is really important too. So we do for the most part we focus on sensible things, but we like to have a few fun ones in there too, because part of this is trying to make people fall in love with seeds and fall in love with the wonders of the earth. So if you've never grown this plant before, we call it tongue tickler, Spilanthes, or Acmella. And it's a really, really fun one. It makes your mouth tingle and go numb for about 3 minutes. It's like nature's pop rocks. Highly recommend. Um, so that's the seeds. And then of course you cannot have a robust regional seed system if you do not have growers who are skilled up to do it. So with when we're talking about local food systems. This is an argument that we always make to our fellow farmers who are at the farmers market with us. If everything we're growing at a farmers market is being trucked in, that's being grown from a seed that's being trucked in from somewhere else, we don't have a local food system. And so we have to have local seeds as the foundational underpinning of this. And the way that that happens is by local farmers learning how to skill up in seed production. And so many of you who are on this call already are skilled up in seed production. Those of you who have not yet, but you're really great farmers, highly encourage you to get involved in that. These folks that we work with around the Intermountain West region, each person is growing seeds on ground, whether it's a small urban farm in Boise or it's a huge scale farm, a couple hours from here out in the high desert. We are everybody's treating these lands that they are lucky enough to be growing on as ecosystems, and that they're one participant in that ecosystem, and that there are many, many, many other participants that deserve their care and their attention and their respect and their love. So the way that so that's kind of like each individual comes at it with that, but then collectively we have to skill each other up in how to do this. So we share production databases with each other. We teach each other best practices for growing these seeds well. And that's a huge part of this, is teaching each other. Experienced growers like Kelly and Jessica can help mentor newer growers who are just getting into this. So we have a really nice, strong, like farmer to farmer community. We meet up once a year and do a lot of stuff with that. The other thing that I think is important to mention here is that because we are farmer owned, as you all know, agriculture is often one of those situations where farmers end up being price takers rather than price setters. And it's really important to us, and this has been a cornerstone of the co-op from the very beginning, that farmers help to set the fair prices for the crops that they grow. And in fact, even Kelly and Jessica on this call have both in negotiations with other seed companies used their contract prices that they get paid from Snake River Seed Co-op to say, hey, you need to pay us more money. We get paid more from Snake River Seeds. And so we're not only helping to support growers, in our own co-op, but we're helping to sort of raise the bar on what's expected on seed producers nationwide. So we're proud of that. We are also working on making this whole ridiculously non-transparent seed system where you go into the grocery store and you buy Burpee and you buy, or you buy Ed Hume or you buy Livingston or Ferry Morse. Livingston and Ferry Morse, they might be sitting next to each other on the shelf. It's literally the same company, two different branches of the same company. They're putting the same seeds in those packets. If you guys remember Peppergate from several years ago, where everybody got, it was like, that's one big seed supplier that put whatever into different companies' packets all over the country. And like, Nobody has any idea because nobody knows where any of that stuff comes from. What we do is we put the name of the actual farmer and the location of that farm on the back of every single packet so everybody knows exactly who grew the seeds in that packet. We're trying to create this thing where the grower or where the consumer, quote, that other person, the gardener, the planter of these seeds has an actual connection with the person who grew them. Another huge component of a community seed system is worker ownership. And so we've got grower ownership and then the worker ownership side of it. We do rigorous germination testing in house. We have, we hand pack all of our seed packets with like little scoops and stuff. There's a huge amount of human labor that goes into this. And so empowering workers to take control over their work environment and give them the opportunity to make this place as beautiful as they want it to be. And as fun and as enlivening as they want it to be is really important as well. We do a lot of education in classes, including free seed swaps, including free seed saving classes. I just got back from a little tour around North Idaho doing I taught like 4 free seed saving classes in North Idaho and in Eastern Washington. And at one of the classes, somebody's like, people always ask us this, are you nervous about putting yourself out of business? You're teaching these people how to grow all their own seeds. We're like, no, are you kidding me? Like if we actually succeeded in teaching enough people how to grow seeds in our region to where nobody wanted to buy our seeds anymore, we would all be just fine. Snake River Seed Co-op does not need to keep existing if we can do that. So public education, community education is super important to us. We haven't figured out yet how to fund that really internally. We rely on external grants really to do that, but we're working on figuring that out. What kind of offerings can we generate a little revenue for the co-op on? But for right now, we've been operating those programs pretty much entirely through grants. We have a pretty big, we call it community seeds giveaway program. We do a lot of, so just on the nuts and bolts sides, we have a buyback program from our wholesale partners, and the seeds that we buy back from the wholesale partners, we then donate to community organizations over the, we prioritize folks in the Intermountain West, but really like anybody who submits a request all over the country, we send out things, seed libraries and community gardens and food justice organizations and silent auctions where people are doing rad fundraising work for some like radical organization or whatever. We get to send out hundreds of these bundles every year. Well over 10,000 packets go out every year to community organizations around the country. And then I would just say that the importance of having this regional network for our co-op, a lot of different seed companies do it differently. A lot of folks, they rely more on their own website or their own, individual direct retail sales. We do a huge amount of volume of seed. We move a lot of seeds through a network of independent businesses who are all over the Intermountain West. And they are those independent businesses. I love working with them because they themselves are pillars in their own community. They are doing really important work in their community. And so it's like we're supporting them and they're supporting us. And there's this, I just think that this idea of local economy, obviously it's one of our core values. And so this idea that we can be supporting a network of other small businesses who are making brick and mortar things work in their regions is really important for us. And then, yeah, I think the last thing I want to mention about a community seed system is this idea, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with this concept, but the idea of in situ conservation versus ex situ conservation. So in situ conservation means you're growing the seeds outside in a place. And this is incredibly important. This is incredibly important to have. If we could have a seed bank, Snake River Seed Co-op could operate a seed bank, and we keep these things cryogenically frozen, and then we pull them out in the end times. But the problem is that these things are not adapting. If they're sitting in a seed bank, they're not adapting to the changing climate as this climate changes around them. But if we're planting them out in real places in our bioregion every year, look at that beautiful picture. That's Jessica and Jeremy's farm. Isn't that beautiful? So these seeds are growing out. They're taking in information. Seeds are amazing in the way that they can take in information from the world around them, and then they can change their DNA in real time and adapt to what's going on and pass that off to their offspring. And these seeds are annuals, most of them. I mean, some of them are biennials or perennials, but they're making seeds every 1 to 2 years. They are able to keep pace with climate change in a way that organisms like us who reproduce much more slowly, we can't adapt to how fast the climate is changing just by our own, offspring. But these seeds really can do that. And so by growing them out in our places year after year, we are helping them to learn how to live here. Right now, they're learning how to live with a hell of a lot of smoke, is what they're learning how to do. And then, but it's not enough to just have them out in the field. Obviously, one of the things I think that where we are really important in terms of a community seed system is this safety backup for them, right? We just because of the nature of being a seed company, we have to keep a certain amount of seeds on hand, so we try to keep something like 3 to 5 years worth of seeds on hand in our inside of our little seed quarters here in Boise. And and what that does is it means like if somebody has a crop failure or something happens, we have the seeds still, and we can send more out, more stock seed out. So this role of both simultaneously encouraging people to grow them out in the world, and then to but then to also save them in the seed quarters is really important, I think. So I want to just share as I wrap up, and we're happy to answer lots of nuts and bolts questions about how we operate the co-op with whoever has whatever questions. But I want to leave us with this thought. So this is some research about so I want to talk about sunflower research. And this the way I learned about this research is through that amazing book, The Light Eaters. If you haven't read it yet, highly recommend it. It's amazing. But so in the Light Eaters, there's some researchers that have studied for a lot of years, studied sunflowers and the ways that they will grow more roots into more nutrient-rich patches. Okay, so here's the thing. So if a researcher puts, say there's two sunflowers next to each other, and a researcher puts a nutrient-rich cache of food kind of nearer to one research or nearer to one sunflower, that sunflower will grow lots and lots and lots more roots into that nutrient-rich cache. But if they put it equidistant between the two sunflowers, it's like they call it like a clear system of social etiquette emerges where they share it. They patch share it. So instead of them both just like aggressively growing in and like trying to get as much as they can get, they like daintily grow in and they share and they sip and they take a little less. So they compete with or they cooperate with each other when the resources are equidistant apart from them, and they share them. And so and there's a lot of different weird things they do like that. That's kind of amazing. Like they position their leaves and they turn their heads and stuff to avoid shading out their neighbors. And all of this allows them to expend way less energy on the things you would have to do to compete, you know, and basically it like lifts all boats. The cooperation lifts all boats. But with seed savers, one of the central tenets that we learn in seed saving is like we should save seeds from like the biggest, best, strongest, you know, individuals, like the best performing individuals. And this researcher, Susan Dudley, she suggests that maybe we've got that wrong, that maybe what we should be doing is actually saving seeds from the plants who seem to be the best cooperators, so that those plants will then they won't have to like their offspring, instead of wasting a bunch of time making lots and lots of defense chemicals or trying to get big and claw their way out and whatever, like we would have patches that actually just share, and they all together produce more than what they can produce by themselves. So just I'll end our little presentation by saying thank you so much for supporting regional seed farmers, and yeah, and just and thinking about how we can cooperate like sunflowers. If you want to stay in touch with us, feel free. There's a little QR code, but our website is just snakeriverseeds.com. And I'll stop sharing my screen. And then we can take questions, Madeline.
Yeah,
We can happily, I'm sure people have questions about the nuts and bolts, but I figured we could just answer their specific ones rather than trying to guess what folks would want to learn about.
totally. Yeah. I loved that sunflower metaphor so much. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna steal that from you with your permission. Um, Yeah. Was there anything that you, Kelly or Jessica, wanted to share before we open it up to Q&A, or do you want to just pop in if folks have questions?
I'm just always glad that Casey is so articulate and she's a great forerunner.
Yeah, I mean, I'll also just share my partner Jeremy and I, we've been farming for 18 years now, and we are certified organic as well as Kelly and Russell. They're certified organic, but not all of our growers in the co-op are certified organic, but all of our growers do adhere to those values. And that's really important to us, and also a reason why we choose to participate as a seed grower in this seed business of Snake River. And working with other seed companies has been really interesting over the years. And I really do appreciate the level of intention and thoughtfulness that Snake River has brought into building the business model, but also the way in which we have moved through some really interesting years. We're not that old. We're kind of like a baby seed company. But we had some really challenging administration changes nationally that we had are still going through. And you know, funding is always an issue. Things were really tight at the very beginning, figuring out taxes, like how do cooperatives even work within this system, this economic system that's not really created for such shared ownership. And so being creative and being communicative and transparent with our customers, with ourselves, with our growers, that has been really critical to building a successful business. Um, and we've started small and we've been making the steps that we've needed to keep our integrity and keep our strength as a co-op. That's all I would add.
Thank you. Well, I know I always have a bunch of questions after these, and I also have some pre-written, but I love to open it up if folks want to come off mute or drop it in the chat if you have any questions. All right, we have one from Sarah. Can you talk about how growers and workers become owners?
Hi, Sarah. It's so nice to see you on the call. I wish I could see your face. Kelly, do you want to take this one or?
No.
It's fine. I mean, I
I
can,
mean,
but
yeah, yeah.
okay, so let's see. So growers become eligible to become co-owners after they have successfully submitted crops into the co-op. Whereas, and then workers have the opportunity to become co-owners after they have worked for the co-op for 6 months. We have a sliding scale buy-in. That was a really important part to us when we were forming, that we were trying to remove financial barriers. And so but basically our sliding scale buy-in goes from $5,000 or sorry, $500 to $3,000 to become a co-owner. And then it doesn't matter how much you put in, you still just get one vote. And then if you ever leave the co-op, which happens, I mean, employees move away or quit, or growers stop farming or whatever. So when that happens, you get your full uh buy-in, I guess it's called, there's a word for that, I can't remember what it is, but you get your full buy-in back, I think with a little bit of interest, and then yeah, I think with a little bit of interest. And the process looks like, I mean, I don't know if you want us to get super deep, Sarah, but the process is like um we send out once a year, we send out from the board sends out a like to anybody who's eligible to become a grower or an owner, they send out a thing that just says, hey, you're eligible. And if people want to receive a share offer, or they want to see the disclosures, our attorney Kelsey J is on here right now too. So Kelsey prepares some documents, and we pull together like the current financials and everything, and then those get shared with folks, and then they review them, they have the opportunity to review them and ask questions, they and then they can decide. And then if they decide they would like a share, like a real share offer, then we extend them one, and then they become members. And I guess technically the board has to vote too on whether to include, like whether to say to give those people shares too.
I'll just add that, if you're looking for as a grower, as a seed grower, if you're looking for, an easy way to just interact with a company, sometimes cooperative models can be extremely tricky. And the co-op model, in essence, is designed to be interactive and be participatory. So if you're not looking for that, you just want your contract, you want to get paid at the end, like maybe the co-op structure isn't something for you yet. However, if you want to dabble your toes in it, a model that Snake River has is one of the more eloquently done one because I feel like the communication is really strong between staff, workers, growers, that whole trifecta of things that can happen with just relationships and build and dealing with people.
Thank
I
you.
think in our area too, and there's a lot of ruralness to our area, and there's a lot of growers, homesteaders out there that would like to participate. And I think over time we've realized that we need to really put our values forward for people. Like they can grow for the co-op without adhering to those values, but they might not want to buy in as a member for that. And we just don't want to be a business that, in order to get more growers or in order to sell more packets, lets go of this value that we carry. And that feels really important. And we've had some struggles along the way with that, and that people maybe they don't take them that seriously. We're learning ways to sort of get them to understand that we mean this. Um, so yeah, that's just been another piece of I think co-ops wrap themselves around values and missions, and it's important to establish what yours are. As far as I'm concerned, as a grower, I if the co-op were to let go of its values of these things and just say we're just going to sell seed packets and we're going to be a really vigorous business, I wouldn't necessarily see the point. I mean, I love adapting seeds to our climate and all of it, but there's all sorts of companies you can sell seeds to, if you just want to make money at seeds. But it's really, really a treat to get to participate in a business that, adheres to something real and refuses to back down on that. Like we live in the state of Idaho is so right wing. And so, and we're just not gonna shut up about how we feel about the world. And if it means we sell less seeds, then that's okay too. That's okay. Uh, but there's not a lot of, extreme right wing homesteaders that are adapting seeds to what's happening either. So this is good.
Thank you. I love those answers to that question. Yeah, especially around the values piece for cooperatives and like the purposefulness of that. Christine had three more logistical questions. What does your infrastructure look like for storage? Do you have a selection of seeds you save, or is it more of a wide range? And what is your germ testing process?
Okay, I'm in our office. I will give you a little tour of
Yay.
how we store the seeds. What you are seeing right here is we call them the rollies because they're ready to roll. These are little packets that we've already packed and they're ready to roll. And then I'll walk you around to see. Here are the little seeds. This is just like we're in an office complex. It's like just like a little weird office in this like 80s. I don't know, there's like a counselor next door and there's an insurance agent on the other side. But it's great. It's like about 750 square feet and we got an air conditioner, which is important for the seeds. So they just sit on these little shelves. We keep them in jars. And we use desiccant packets and we replace those desiccant packets as they get dry. I guess I could show you the back stock too. I don't know if this is like crazy making, but I don't know. I mean, it's not that exciting, but there's some more, I don't know, bags of seeds and stuff. They're just in this office. And then what was the other question?
And just real quick, what Casey just showed you. So there's it's like two spooning U-shaped things. So the back stock is the bulk seeds that haven't been packaged in a U shape along the walls, and then within that there's another U shape that is the rollies.
What's your germ testing process?
Yeah, so we use the ASTA, the National Seed Germ Testing Protocols, and we do those in-house for the most part. There are some varieties that we have. So we have I'm not taking you into the bathroom, but we have a germination chamber that lives in our bathroom. You have to like, yeah, so you have to share um, so you, yeah, so we have a little germ chamber, and then we also we have like there's a light area. We put some in sand. We do petri dishes for some. We have a little fridge where we'll do cold stratification for the ones that need cold stratification. And then if we really have a hard time, if we can't get using our own methods, if we can't get reliable germ test data on that, then we send them to the Idaho State Seed Laboratory, and they do testing on each lot. And it's a lot. I mean, in any given time, we probably have like 800 lots or something like that that we're having to germ test. So it's a lot because we don't often, we might have multiple, two or three, or sometimes even four lots of the same variety. And so, that like growers have grown in different years, or different growers have grown in the same year or whatever. And so, there is a huge amount. We have a person who is employed here, for about 20 to 25 hours a week year round, just doing germ testing.
Wow, that's so interesting. Adds a whole new side of things for me. Um, Celeste asked, how many owners did you start with, and could you talk more about the initial years of the company and how you got started?
So we started as a single member LLC under my name. So we started in 2014, and technically I was the only owner of the business from 2014 until like January 1st of 2022. And in 2022, when we became a legal cooperative, so we basically, what happened is I thought I was leaving the business, and I did leave the business for a little while. And I went and had a stint as a college professor, and now I'm back because I really love this job. Yeah. But basically what we did is we formed a transition team of, I think there was, what, Kelly, like maybe six of us on the
I think so.
team or so, and Kelsey could speak to this too. But yeah, so, and Kelsey helped us, our attorney. She's a total badass. If anybody needs a really awesome cooperative lawyer, she's great. But so we worked for months on figuring out what that would look like. And then we drafted bylaws and did all of that stuff. And then when we started, I think oh gosh, I should know off. I wish I would have looked it up. I bet we had maybe like 10 owners, maybe at first, something like that.
I wanted
Jessica,
to
were
say
you guys an
seven.
owner, right?
Yeah, for some reason I think I want to say seven, but it
Mm-hmm.
couldn't be more than 10.
Well, we could only
Mm-hmm.
bring so many on per year, right?
Hmm.
Like there's some
Mm-hmm.
legal stuff that happens there that, so whatever that number was, we got that many from the first year.
Yeah, and so like we could add, because we currently have eight part-time employees, but I think at the time we had probably four people, and that was enough. We were able to extend a share offer to all of the workers who worked there at the time, and so they all could become owners if they wanted to, right when we transitioned. But with the growers, we had like 40, it was more than 30 people anyway at that time who were growing for the co-op. And so because of SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission laws, you have to we could only extend offers to 10 growers per year. And then so we basically started with the growers who had been growing for the longest, and the ones that had the most seniority in the co-op, they got the first offers. And then so it took us a few years to get through everybody who needed, who was eligible for a share offer to be offered one. And now everybody has been offered one, and it's just a question of like whether people want to join or not at this point.
And there's also this question about talking more about the initial years of the company. Um, and then Lauren asks about the greater level of communication and participation. And I think all of that's kind of braided together also because, like I was alluding to, I mean, there's just starting anything with many different people and many different personalities in a manner that respects autonomy and lived experience and all of the things. Plus, we're all just like a bunch of weird farmers and seed nerds. So you like layer that on top of it. Um, yeah, there was some really trying times, and then also some really passionate people were stretched thin and left to do other lovely things on the planet. And so it's a constant adapting of personnel and staff and momentum. And so I think the communication that evolved from that has been really strong because it's one of we've had some amazing staff on Snake River, including Casey, who left and came back. Um, and they're able to clearly communicate with growers, clearly communicate between the board of directors, who has been really strong over the years, but also the board of directors has had a strategy of replacement because often board of directors become legacy uh, people that are cemented in place and never leave. And so I think there's a lot of value to people coming on the board and stepping off the board and um, yeah, sharing knowledge and having that exchange. As a grower, I've really appreciated every year we have an annual growers meeting that's required by law, and also another meeting that just like gets us all together and we share information, we share financials, we share questions. It's a farmer to farmer exchange. We share food, of course. Um, we drop off our seed for the year. There's all these things that happen, and it's a beautiful process to be a part of because I mean we live in Salmon, Idaho, which is uh, on the eastern part of the state, in the middle of, it's very, very remote. It's 2.5 hours from any major city and 5 hours from Boise. So it's hard to see other growers. We're closer to Montana, folks in Montana, than we are most of our Idaho grower neighbors. So it's a great chance for us to go over and meet friends, farming friends. And that participation um, isn't like a direct requirement, but it's a chosen participation. And you just don't see that on contract growing for other seed companies. I mean, you barely get an email update every now and again from other companies, and it can feel very isolating. So cooperative models, I think, are a really great way, if they're done well, to share that burden of just being a human on this planet and navigating the economic systems and the social systems and the ecological systems that, are inherently like really fun to be a human in part of, right? They can be really beautiful when designed well to support everyone.
I think that was the last question in the chat. If anyone else wants to drop one, feel free or come off mute.
There was one more that I saw that was about whether we are a nonprofit as well as a co-op. And at this time, we are not a nonprofit, but we do a lot of work that we identify as nonprofit that the seeds maybe struggle to support, like, seed saving classes and things. And so we have grants that we have been using to do some of that work. And we sometimes talk about starting a nonprofit arm. We haven't gotten there yet, but yeah, it's hard to take a business that's, supposedly, at least even if we have values, we're still sort of operating in this capitalistic world, and then try to do things that are more whimsical and don't necessarily generate profit. Um,
Yeah, and I was gonna say too, depending, I mean, y'all, I don't know how many, I know some, I mean, we have one of our fellow growers who's, our fellow co-op growers who's in Montana. So I know not everybody on this call is from Oregon, but I'm not sure what the laws are like in Oregon, but I, in Idaho, we don't have, you cannot legally incorporate as a cooperative in Idaho because we don't think like that in Idaho. But so maybe in Oregon you all can. But in Idaho you can't. And so we are technically in Idaho, we are incorporated as a um C corporation, and we are taxed under subchapter T, which is the cooperative taxation structure. And so that's the format that we've had to use in Idaho because we're incorporated in Idaho. Now, if we were incorporated in another state that actually allowed that cooperative business model to be legally recorded, then that could happen for you all too.
That is fascinating. I didn't know that. For those of us in Oregon, you can incorporate as a cooperative. Um,
I just have one more quick question about that.
Oh yeah, benefit corporation. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Um, So in a cooperative, my understanding is that oftentimes there are dividends paid out to members. Is that something, and I know you said that there was a like a membership fee or whatever, sliding scale, and then you get that back when you leave with interest. But what's the like dividends situation, or is it just that you're paid a fair wage for your product?
Well, this is an issue that we've just barely had to deal with for the first time last year, because last year was the first time since we incorporated as a legal cooperative where we had any amount of excessive, I shouldn't say excessive, excess revenue that we could decide what to do with. And I will tell you that that was coming off the heels of a couple of pretty, I mean, anybody who's been in the seed world knows that like the whole thing around COVID was absolutely insane. So like in COVID times, I mean, in 2020, everybody bought everything we had. So in 2021, we're like, growers grow whatever, we'll buy whatever, but whatever. And so then we got all this excessive inventory. And then in 2022, everyone was like, I'm done. I tried my farming. I'm going back on vacation. I'm over this. And so like the seed sales just plummeted for a couple of years. We got into some financial trouble. We had to take out a loan. Um, and yeah, it was touch and go there for a couple years. And then like we've managed to rewrite the ship now. And so last year we did have our first like with a substantial amount of profit, and we put it to a vote of the members. And what the members decided to do was to put it into a savings account, like a CD, because we didn't at that time have any amount of operating expenses outside of just our normal cash flow. So now we have 3 months, at least there's more than 3 months of like 3.5 months of operating expenses that are in the bank. And that was what the co-op membership decided to do. Our fiscal year ends in September 30th. And this year we'll be in the same boat again. We'll have profit. And so we'll put it to a vote of the members again. Do we want to give dividends? Do we want to put it in savings? Do we want to invest in something in the business? And we'll give the members a chance to vote on that. And if we do give dividends, Kelsey's like, there's like a ton of different, like there's all these rules about who gets what and how, because obviously with these different classes of owners, it's quite complicated. So it's like, if you're a worker owner, how do we calculate the percentage for you, and for a farmer owner and all that? How much seed do you put into the co-op? All that stuff. So we have like a whole thing, and we could share our bylaws and all that with all of you. If anybody needs those, we could just share those with you to see how we figure all that out. But yeah.
If I send you my email in the chat, I'm working on developing like a cooperative model, different industry, but if I send you my email, could you send me those?
I sure can. And I will again plug Kelsey here as a great resource for you if you need any consulting. She's a sustainable economies law fellow, and she's a total badass. So
Incredible. Anyone else? We have time for maybe one or two more questions.
Yeah, I do have a question. Hey, I'm Lauren, and I met one of you, I think, during Organic Seed Alliance. And thanks so much for the seed that you guys gave me that day and that you sent for my seed library. It's really wonderful. And it's really great to talk to you in person. So, it's really very transparent what you're doing, why you're doing it. Never heard anybody talk about an acknowledgement of Black people and people outside of the Western Hemisphere, people originating from the global South, really working as a cooperative anyway. It's not something that's newly invented. So thanks for that acknowledgement. Really interesting to see how one of your values is anti-racism. Extremely important, right? Always, but especially right now. I wonder how many in the cooperative right now are identify as Indigenous, Black, people of color. in your cooperative?
There are no people currently in our cooperative who identify as Indigenous or Black people of color. Um, there are, we have a couple folks who identify as Latino. And then, yeah, but we do not have any folks in our area that we know of who are growing seed. But we are open to, we would love to meet more folks who are growing seeds in our area or who would like to get into growing seeds. And so, yeah, it would be really great to connect with whoever, whoever you might know who is interested in that. And we do, Jessica, I don't know if you want to talk at all about what you're doing with Sydney, but yeah, so we don't have co-op growers, but we do have some relationships with folks where we're doing projects with them.
So just as a follow-up, and I wanted to ask this just independently before, is like, what do you consider your region? I mean, Intermountain West comprises about 12 states. So
We can sit, it's, yeah, we have a hard time defining it too, but I would say east of the Cascades, Oregon and Washington, east of the Cascades, northern Nevada, northern Utah, Idaho. We just consider all of Idaho, and then western Montana, western Wyoming.
Just like cold, relatively dry. We all do share somewhat of a agricultural just commonality in that, and there's variation for sure. But it's definitely not the west side that's got a lot more water. Um, yeah, it's really hard to define, but it's not California, and it's not Western Oregon or Western Washington, and maybe not even out in the plains of Montana.
We are a pretty small, scrappy cooperative still. I think we have some really strong roots, but still doing the learnings and unlearnings necessary to participate in meaningful ways. And in a state like Idaho, it can, there's real challenges. And I've really valued the folks who are involved with the cooperative because a lot of our farmers work directly with some really cool projects that are trying to lift alongside some of the agricultural initiatives run by people of color, run by Indigenous folks, run by women. Um, and in a state like Idaho, that can be really, really challenging and really, really difficult. So I do appreciate being a part of a company that holds those values front and center. And when we receive pushback, which we have as a cooperative, um, we are able to push right back. Like, no. Uh, and so yeah, there's, it's ever evolving. And we have worked on some seed rematriation initiatives. We've worked with some culturally sensitive stewardship of seeds, and we, as in the cooperative, and then many of our individual growers have been able to just maintain and build relationships with other folk over time. But it takes time. It does take time, and we're uh, open to it all for sure.
Thank you. I see a hand raised, Spencer.
Hi. Thanks all for being here. Hi, Casey. Let's see. I was just wondering if I think you might have said a little bit, but I was wondering if you could give a few more thoughts about how you think about like demand or interest or what crops are like in higher demand or lower or higher supply. I'm sure there's like interesting data just on what sells or doesn't, but I wonder if you ever do any other forms of data collection or other, just ways to ask the community both like what crops are in demand, but then what seeds are in demand. Because here in the Portland area, sometimes it's actually really hard to hard to determine which food crops for sale, but also seed crops are more or less in demand.
Well, I would say that okay, so I mean, I can list off top sellers and stuff like that, which I think is kind of what you're getting at, but kind of not what you're getting at too, is where is the supply not meeting the demand? And I think the big opportunity I see is in figuring out how we all can skill up in native seed production. Because food crops are one thing and cultivated crops are one thing. It's a very different thing to be working with crops that are not um that like don't grow, like they are wild, they don't want to do what we want them to do. And so I like and it's a complete it's the same basic idea, but it's a very different idea too. And so I don't know, um I feel like that's one of the biggest opportunities I see. And there is like we've been on we my coworker Jeremy and I were on this call with the people from the Wyoming Nature Conservancy. Like they have money, they want to pay farmers to establish native plant production fields because like the government is, doing what it's doing. And so there's all this need for restoration for seed for restoration projects, but nobody, like it's just really difficult to get it. And so there's like in my area there's a seed increase thing that's trying to, like, people are trying to figure out how do you get like a local ecotype collected and then grow that up on a small scale and then collect that seed and grow that up on a bigger scale to actually have more seed. I think that native seeds, in my opinion, are the biggest low hanging, or not low, just they're not low hanging, they're hard in every way. And so yeah, I think let's say they're the that's the challenge. Yeah, Sarah, for sure. Native Seed Conference. We need to go.
Spencer, I'll also add one little thing just about the structure of the co-op. Like, I'm, we have a data um, guru, wizard who works with the team, and we've been tracking sales. We've been we track all of these things, and it's able setting up the systems like that. Even though for me it sounds horrible, and I don't ever want to look at the spreadsheets involved, but like that has given us as a cooperative so much knowledge to track. Um, and so when things aren't selling, or sometimes like early on, a lot of growers were like, we love this tomato, or all of a sudden we have like 300 different lettuce varieties, but really only three of them sell. Um, we can make informed decisions, or better informed decisions. It's not all based on economics, but that's also a reality.
Yeah,
And it's
sorry, go ahead.
Go. No, I was just gonna say it's complicated because of the way that we decide. Like, so basically, if a grower introduces a crop into the co-op, then they can become that crop's primary steward, so they get the first dibs on growing it out when it needs grown out. And so there's a real incentive for people to put in more crops into the co-op. And so then you end up with 25 varieties of lettuce, and what we really need is 5, or 75 tomatoes or whatever it is. So it's complicated because it's like you're sharing people's love, their personal love of what they love to grow, with their desire to have the contract for what they grow, and then plus like what we can sell. So it's all, we want to do right by the growers, but we also want to sell we want to have things on the shelves that sell too. So.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for all that. I was just thinking, in some ways, it's also an interesting connection to like what Lauren was saying, because I think, at least in our area, there are a significant number of BIPOC farmers who would love to be growing certain cultural varieties, but there's not often enough demand, or at least perceive there's not a sense that there's a demand for some of these crops. Um, and it's just hard to measure. Like sometimes people just tell themselves there's not a demand when maybe there would be more than they think there is. And maybe just another little thought to that point is like I bet people are familiar with Ujamaa farms, in more like active on the East Coast, but they're working towards that, some of that stuff, and I think they're even interested in like kind of a West Coast. I mean, more of like a national, but like kind of a network where smaller scale growers could do contracting with them. So that could be an idea for other people who, especially like BIPOC growers, who maybe your hyper local community just doesn't have enough demand for them. Someone like Ujamaa or some of these other orgs might be able to connect it with a slightly more regional community that really expands the demand for those kind of seeds. Anyway, just lots of thoughts about how we
Yeah.
actually figure out what is wanted. And like in
Yeah,
my
I think
world, the market farm world, it's like we just see some of the same crops over and over again. And sometimes I'm like, let's see some of the new interesting things, you know? Yeah.
And as the
100%.
conversation continues, like, yeah, like the time is totally ripe for all of these things to continue with intention, like these conversations to start. And um yeah, Ujama is a great example. And just like even here in Idaho, we have a really strong Basque history and the Basque sheep herders in like the early 1800s, maybe even a little bit earlier. But um, our Basque peppers, like there's this like a cultural tie, like a heritage tie to some of these peppers that those folks brought through as they were tending sheep, even before Idaho was a state. So it's like that those sell because people like stories and people enjoy their connections to place um, and so having the wherewithal as a seed company to work with the broader community and like acknowledge what all of that means and celebrate the seeds as living entities and beings that we are tending to. I think that's a really interesting time to be alive because it
Mhm.
wasn't always that way.
Yeah, I also want to just um to lift up Ujama when they so I think what's cool about Ujama's model when they started they reached out to a bunch of seed companies and they said, "Hey, look, if you realize like how messed up all this is and how racist this country is and as a form of reparations, would you consider donating annually to our company to get it off the ground? What can you commit to doing that?" And I thought that was such a brilliant model because it gave us a chance to say, yeah, sure, we'll commit this amount per year and for 5 years while you get off the ground. And they did that. They reached out to a lot of different folks. So I think there's a ton of potential there to like like even if we don't personally have the relationships yet, when people reach, we can reach back. And so that's really exciting. So I think Udrama's model is rad, and I think they are expanding. I think they are expanding all over the place. Heck yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I do want to just flag we are at time. I appreciate you all, or you three staying a little extra to answer. I am gonna trial this for the first time. Okay, let's see. You should see a little poll pop up on your screen if you don't mind filling that out. I don't believe it saves your contact information with it. Do you see something on your screen? Okay, cool. If you
Yeah.
don't mind filling it out before you go, that's much appreciated. I will be following up with everyone who registered with the recording. And then I believe at some point you all had your contact information up on the screen. So I'll include that email in case you all want to reach out to Snake River with any other follow-up questions or things that might come up for you after this space that you want to follow up on. And again, you can feel free to reach out to me as well with any questions about our programming and the supports that we can offer for folks in Oregon who are interested in starting cooperatives of their own. Um, and I believe that's all of it. Thank you so much, Casey and Kelly and Jessica, for sharing your experience and your expertise and your knowledge with us. Appreciate it so much. And I'm going to end the recording now.
Thanks, everybody.